Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guests are Jacob Weaver and Brandon Byrne. Thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, yeah, thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Jacob and Brandon of eXp Realty are founders of the Weaver Byrne Group and dominating the Seattle luxury housing market with their high-quality service. Before starting the Weaver Byrne Group, Jacob received a degree in electrical engineering. He went to work for the Department of Defense and began flipping properties on the side about 8 years ago. From there, he migrated to creative finance side of the real estate, quit his day job, and eventually wound up on the broker side. So guys, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you both on. It's interesting, you all being in Seattle. I don't have many guests from Seattle. So if you have anybody else there, that would be a good guest. Please let us know. But welcome again. I want to jump right in. I want you all to share a little bit about your focus and what you're doing in commercial real estate right now. And then let's dive into, how you can help the listeners with your unique ability and superpower.
Well, really appreciate that. Yeah, like we said, thanks for having us. Yeah, up here in Seattle, we're in a good spot. It's kind of a crazy market up here. I know that you get glimpses of all sorts of different markets around the country, but Seattle has definitely been a good one for us and a good fit for what we're doing up here.
Nice. So what is your all's focus right now in commercial real estate? What do you do for this industry?
Yeah, so we do a little bit of everything. As you might have seen in some of our profiles, we started off in smaller kind of single family residential type investment opportunities, both with creative financing. Then we kind of moved up into some multifamily, small multifamily type acquisitions with some investors. And now we've kind of moved to the broker side. Seattle is a market that is it's booming. It's booming. And we're going through kind of a growth period. And so what's happening in our space is there's a lot of townhouse development. There's a lot of mixed use, with like apartments on top, retail space below, a lot of mid-size apartment buildings that are being constructed just because we have kind of a housing shortage right now. And so what Brandon and I do is we focus on, working with investors who are heavy on development. That's one thing that we really enjoy. And so, we spend a lot of our time, developing relationships with, commercial brokers, with development projects, with the city, with the permitting departments, things like that. And then we help place those projects with investors who are looking to develop these apartment buildings, develop the mixed use, develop townhomes, luxury homes. There's a really great mid-level luxury home market here in Bellevue and in Seattle. So that's really what we do. We work with the developers and kind of those mid to larger investors who are looking to either 1031 exchange or to develop properties here in the core Seattle and Bellevue areas.
Awesome. Well, I hope to jump into that some, and I wanted to back up a little bit. I know I'd love to jump into just the acquisition side, and maybe you can give us a glimpse on the brokerage side. Everybody that's listening, is probably wondering often when they're having those calls with brokers or maybe reaching out. I'd love to know more about from your side, and even just to better the relationship and ways that you're finding deals or working with investors or ways that it would help us, on our side to work better with somebody like yourself, right? And so why don't you just, you guys elaborate on just the acquisition side from the brokerage perspective?
Brandon, do you want to jump in and kind of start with your experience on acquisitions and kind of the volume that you were doing and how we kind of take that model into what we do now?
Yeah. As Jacob had talked about before, we both kind of came from that investment background. So we both kind of grew up in the industry sourcing properties, and as the industry has kind of grown and the population has grown here, so have our rules and zoning laws. So there's been a lot of opportunity zones and upzoning in our areas. So formerly properties and parcels that we were looking at that had some sort of use has now been upzoned more for that high density product. And we've not only been keeping a tap on those properties and those neighborhoods where those trends are going towards and stuff. So what we've been basically doing is basically taking that knowledge from our previous days where we're getting going in the same neighborhood, same territory. Now that our city's overly populated and overly saturated with job opportunities and job growth here, we've now that we've had a good tap on that market, we're able to identify good properties and subject properties that have good outlook on them if investors do come in with those upzoning laws and rules that have come in place, have an opportunity there in those same areas. So we're able to provide value, I would say, in that regard. But really, I would say with all the opportunity and the upzoning and just the general area, we're able to kind of focus in and hone in on really what our investors are looking for.
Let's talk about that just a little bit. I know you all focus on, you mentioned earlier, Jacob, about working with investors who are focused on development. And then Brandon was talking about some of the things you all help them with. I think sometimes when you're new into this business, especially a development, as you're learning about this, you may not realize how much the broker can help you with some of those things. Could you elaborate on that relationship piece and how you help the investor understand the zoning requirements or the permits that are needed and getting those things?
That right there is kind of the crux of our value, right? That's why we do what we do. Our philosophy, with Weaver Byrne Group is that, we as investors and as brokers and as people in the real estate industry, we're not meant to do everything, right? Like you on the syndication side, are probably very good at raising money and developing those kind of relationships, working with your attorney, things like that, right? You don't have to do everything. And that's the way we see it, is how do we step into a relationship with these developers, with these other investors and take a load off of kind of the scope of what they should be focusing on, right? If you're good at raising money, you should be syndicating. If you're good at contract work and structuring, maybe you should be an attorney, right? If you're really good at digging into details and understanding a market, maybe you should be a broker. You don't necessarily have to do all of those things by yourself as the investor. And so the way we see it is our relationship and our role in that community is to truly understand the arbitrage in value, either whether it's in a lot, whether it's in a value add opportunity, whether it's just understanding the rental market or the resale market so well that you as the investor can put your trust in our opinion and in our research, right? That's where we see kind of the strength in our relationship is, we can go into these conversations with developers, with builders, and really just say, hey, this is what people are buying right now. This is what people are renting. This is how you should structure the deal in the market to make your numbers work. And really knowing kind of the end product and the process to get to the end product from the side of the consumer, right? That's where your value, that's how you generate value in an apartment building or in a retail space, is understanding what it's going to be worth, right? And so as a broker, we feel like that's one of our main responsibilities. Let's take that knowledge off of your plate, right? I mean, you should be informed, right? But your broker is somebody you should trust on a very high level to give you good information, to show you what the market's doing, to give you that data and understanding of what your end product should be. And so I don't know if that totally answers your question, but that's how we kind of see the relationship with those developers. How can we be a trustworthy and dependable and reliable source of information to help you get that end product that's going to help you derive wealth, right? That's the ultimate goal. Provide good housing solutions and really understand what the consumer needs and how the market's going to get you there. So that's how we see our role in that relationship, if that kind of answers the question.
For sure. It's such an important relationship. And, I like how you talk about, trusting the broker's opinion. Talk about that a little bit. I know there's listeners that are saying, oh, wait a minute, I can't trust anything most of the brokers say. I know that's their opinion. I'm just putting that out there. Some people's opinion. However, I would say so many of the brokers are going to know the market so much better than I will, and that's why we're hiring you, right? That's why we want to work with you because, of your knowledge of the market. Speak to how we know that, we're working with a trustworthy broker or not.
Yeah, there's always good indications, right? First thing is track record. That's something that, any banker is going to look at you for as an investor, right? They want to know, hey, if we're going to write a loan, can they get this deal done? Can they take it from start to finish? Same thing with a broker, right? So seeing a track record of, okay, what kind of properties have you sold in the past? What kind of value have you given to other investors, right? So there's a word of mouth component. There's looking at MLS stats, looking at kind of the properties that we've sold. That's a good place to start. There's not all brokers are the same, right? They specialize in different niches. They specialize in different price points. Some work harder than others, as we all know, right? There's some people do 5 deals a year, and there's some people who do 50 deals a year. That matters, right? So if you're doing a higher level deal, you probably should be looking at people who have a track record, or even maybe one step below or above the area that you're working, right? So you're not going to get a brand new broker with a track record who's done 10 deals in their life to put together a 300 unit apartment deal. Like, probably not a good idea. But being able to see somebody who maybe has done 100 or 150 unit and has brokered that, or has done something of value even on the financing side or the structure or something like that. So looking for that track record is key. Also, just understanding that those relationships, they don't happen all of a sudden, especially with bigger deals, right? With bigger deals, maybe you need to do some smaller deals, or you need recommendation from other people who worked with the broker. So I think that those relationships have to be nurtured, especially when you get into the higher price points. And that's why we kind of, Brandon and I, we're loyal brokers. If we're pitching a deal to one investor, we're not pitching it to 10 other people to try to, just broker it for ourselves, right? We're pretty loyal to a number of kind of our VIP buyers and investors. And that's a good model for us because we find we can provide that higher level service to fewer people, but they can trust us on a different level, right? So having that loyalty and building that loyalty over time and through, smaller transactions or through your network, that's a good way to kind of vet brokers is just knowing it's going to take a little bit of time sometimes, right?
For sure. It definitely takes time, but I would say too, like I think if not, maybe all of our deals, if or very close to all, have come through broker relationships. Such an important relationship, and one like you talked about. It's like we want this relationship to continue for many years, right? Through many deals. That's why you have to learn to trust brokers, and obviously you're going to verify all your information. You have to do that for your investors' interest as well, but you're going to trust the broker a lot. And so you talked about becoming a VIP buyer and nurturing that relationship. Maybe could you one of you elaborate on just becoming that VIP buyer? That's what most of the listeners want, right? They want to have that relationship. So just like you talked about, you're that investor that your broker's calling when they have that opportunity before they call anyone else.
Communication is huge to us, and I've learned a lot from Brandon in the last 2 years on just this subject. The speed at which you answer your phone, the speed at which you communicate, the trustworthiness of your information and how you conduct yourself in a professional way means a lot to us brokers. I know that sounds silly, but in the same way that brokers are a dime a dozen, so are investors in a way. And we can also smell when somebody is, not necessarily trustworthy, or they're trying to do something shady, or they're raising money in a way that maybe they shouldn't be, right? Like, we can smell that, and we don't want our names, connected with people who are doing bad business. So I think that's an important thing, is just being super communicative, being upstanding investors, like doing the right thing. There's a lot of times where, deals are going sideways, and you have to solve problems, right? We as brokers want to be working with people who can solve problems and solve them quickly. And so that's a huge component to what we look for with our VIP buyers, is looking for people who are trustworthy, people who do good business, people who have good reputation and communicate with us, so that when problems do come up, we can solve them together and work through issues. That's a huge thing for us.
Makes complete sense, and communication is so huge. And like you mentioned, the speed at which you answer your phone, it can be so important. It just investor. I mean, whether you're on the GP side or the operator side or you're the brokerage side, I mean, it's so important to answer that phone. Could you give some examples of how your best investor or your VIP buyer stands out? What do they do? That really, I know you talked about obviously communication. They do what they say they're going to do, and they can work out problems. They don't see a problem and just freeze, right? They can work through things and make it happen. Anything else that's really helped the cream to rise to the top in your eyes as a broker?
Brandon, you want to jump on that one? You want to expand?
Yeah, I mean, outside of just being a good group of people or a good individual to work with, I would say first and foremost being qualified. I think they need to be able to be qualified to be able to build the projects, complete projects, and fund the projects. So as long as they're checking off all those boxes, and we have confidence that they are qualified outside of their scope of work, that I think kind of settles any kind of fears that things might not work out down the road. Because a lot of these projects, they're long-term projects, they're long-term closes. So we need to have confidence in our clients that they're going to be able to, wrap this up potentially within a year or 2 years, depending on the scope of the project.
For sure. So how have they? Let's think about someone who's getting started in development. How does someone like that stand out to you as somebody you're going to take that risk on?
Yeah, we're doing that all the time, right? We're developing relationships, and when one project doesn't work for one investor, then we try to place it with somebody else when somebody passes. So we're constantly kind of vetting people, right? If you're first getting started, don't act like you're not first getting started. That's the biggest thing, right? We can totally work with you, and we can provide value to new investors, and brokers are willing to do that, right? Most everybody starts at ground zero, right? And there's a couple people who have, either who start off with a bit of help, but in general, everybody starts somewhere, right? So we as brokers, if you're just getting started, be upfront about that, and then maybe there's a way that we can partner you with somebody else who's in our network, right? Everybody's had a mentor at some point. Everybody gets help along the way in real estate. From somebody, from a banker, from a mentor, from somebody, right? So we can absolutely be that if you tell us that you're like, hey, I'm just getting started, right? I need to understand this. Most good brokers will see that as a relationship that can be nurtured and developed through time. And so if you're just getting started, be upfront and just be aware of what value you can provide and what you might need help with. And a lot of times we can piece it together with people to maybe partner on a project with, or a project that would be better suited in size or scope, that might be a better fit for you, right? Because we're working with all sorts of investors across the board. So we've seen a lot of what has worked for people and what hasn't. So maybe we can provide some guidance there as well, as like, this scope might be a better fit for you, right? So there's a whole conversation behind that, but in general, I think just be straightforward. If you're just getting started, that's okay. Just be straightforward about it, and then we can take the appropriate steps to get you going.
Everyone had to start somewhere, right?
Everyone.
Yeah. So, getting to see so many deals, working with so many investors, what do you like to see as far as preparing for a potential downturn when you're looking at deals, working with investors to see how they're maybe structuring a deal or things like that?
Yeah. One of the big things, we're pretty conservative, to be honest. We look at the market, and one of our jobs is to to protect our investors the best way that we can, in the transaction and through the transaction, because a lot of times there's either back end listings or we're hoping to continue working with an investor on another deal, right? So we have to have that in mind. Like, how do we protect our investors, moving forward? So right now, in COVID times, I feel like that's a big unknown in a lot of ways. We are looking for properties that have multiple exit strategies, and I think that's a really important aspect. So, for instance, we just pitched a deal, a townhouse deal that had a really unique product, which was different than most. Townhouses, as you know, can be sold individually, but the way that this one was structured, and this is what we're looking for, it had additional ADUs in half of the inventory, and so in terms of like selling them individually, if the market dips a little bit, you could either sell them to get out, right, and break even, or you could keep them and rent them out. And because they had the opportunity to split ADUs, you actually got an extra 50% unit count just on the way that this inventory was structured. So that's one example of things that we're kind of looking for right now is, okay, if you can't sell them, then what's it look like to hold them? What's the second option? Could you refinance them or sell them to somebody who's doing a 1031 exchange or something like that from some smaller inventory that wants more units? And would that make sense? So we're looking at kind of three options. Could you refinance? Could you sell it as a block of like a small mid-size apartment building, or could you sell them individually? And so that gives the investor options, which depending on what the market's doing, like all of those would be solid deals, depending on how, like what the market was doing and how you wanted to exit the project. So that's one example of what we're looking for is, hey, when we sell something on the front end, do you have options on the back? And that can really make a difference for somebody who needs to rearrange assets or has a portfolio of things that they might need to get out of. Like sometimes a one option exit is not a great exit. So keeping that and being mindful for our investors before we even structure the deal, before we put a price on it, before we put terms on a project, that's what we're looking for. What are the options at the end?
And that speaks a lot to just the trust you have to have in your broker, like we were talking about before too, and your knowledge in the market. I think especially coming into new markets, you may not know what best fits that market as far as different exit strategies. And so it's something I'm definitely going to talk to my broker about, and thinking through exit strategies, especially in a deal like you're talking about now. What do you all expect to happen over the next, say, 6 to 12 months in the real estate market?
That's a tough one. I don't know if anybody really actually knows that answer. It's I guess kind of easy to kind of estimate, right? And we can kind of make some changes and kind of pivot with some guesses. But us as brokers, we like to really kind of pride ourselves in with the Weaver Byrne Group to have multiple pillars of our business. So we need to be able to pivot at any time and still keep that deal flow going and keep our pipeline full. But where the market's going, we're seeing some minor tremors in the commercial space, right? So definitely where you have a high retail space and high leases, I think you're seeing some leases where maybe some tenants didn't have any personal guarantees, and they do have some exits in their leases. So we do see some lease spaces here and commercial spaces that are being vacated, but hopefully that trend doesn't continue. And I think the commercial space and landlords are strong, right? They're savvy investors as well. So they'll be able to pivot as well. But if anything, I mean, here locally in Seattle, we have such a strong hiring economy and a strong local economy. Here, I think we'll be okay. Maybe some secondary markets, maybe where there might not be as high income earning jobs and a big hiring boom. And depending on the industry, they might get hit a little bit different. But as long as, rates stay good and, willing buyers and willing and able-bodied buyers and sellers are still participating in the market and trading properties, I think we'll be okay. I think us locally and us as a country, I think we got some strong people here. So That's a tough one to answer. I think specifically kind of where it's going, but hopefully we're trending up. We're still in a hot market here in the Northwest and on the West Coast, and hopefully that trend continues.
One of the things. Oh, go ahead, Whitney.
No, go right ahead, please. If you want to elaborate on that, please.
Yeah. One thing that Brandon's saying about the commercial market, like one thing as brokers is, how we provide value again is how we acquire and where those leads and opportunities come from. So when Brandon's talking about, there might be some minor tremors, there's minor tremors in all sorts of different markets at all times, right? It just really depends on what's going on. But being able to understand where to source deals can be very different based on what's tremoring at any given time, right? So for instance, that commercial market, the apartment market, hotels, things like that are taking a little bit of a back burner ride right now with COVID. Maybe you're not buying those on market, right? Maybe you're not buying those for a retail price, right? As we would call it. Maybe you need to buy them through note acquisition, right? That's a strategy that we're looking at right now, is connecting with asset managers on the banking side. Are there opportunities in that space where the numbers and the structure will look a little bit different, but it might, like, even if the market is cooling off in some areas, the way you acquire the property and the direction that it comes from, that could make a difference in your deals and your deal flow. Not saying you shouldn't do deals. Maybe you should just buy more conservatively or buy in a different way with different terms or from a different source. And so buying in the note space, that's a good option. Off market right now, we're digging through permits, like the permit data, people who might have come to permitting and are offloading projects. So there are different ways to source based on how strong each niche market is. So I think that's an important aspect to kind of add to what Brandon's saying. It's like, even though you might have some strong spaces and some tremor spaces, maybe you just need to pivot how you're acquiring properties and where those leads are coming from.
Do you all have a daily habit that you're disciplined about that's helped you achieve success?
Yeah.
Wait.
Mine is communication with my team. Right. We both, Jacob and I, have a lot going on within our team and our daily schedules with the team to support the team and support our business. That I feel like I talk to Jacob more than I talk to anybody else. So I feel like that is key, right? We need to be able to understand what we're doing every day, because our day changes with the single phone call, right? So I would say communication is key, and starting the day off strong. And we're a big checklist type of team, and if we keep just checking things off the box every day, and really just, I would say, communication. And really that understanding of what our goals are, and short-term daily goals, and basically just really tapping on those.
Is there a means that has helped you to be able to communicate well with your team?
We're a little bit old-fashioned, to be honest. We do have an office, so people do come into the office and get feedback. We have daily meetings and kind of ongoing communication just verbally, but we're a little bit we're old school. We email, texting, and phone calls. That's the general way to do it. I know a lot of people use Trello or some of those type of workspace type tools. We are still in the phone call method, which works for us. And so that's an important thing. The communication's key, being able to pivot at any time, and just finding kind of a path and a way to communicate that works for you and your team. I think that's crucial for us. It's just being on the phone, text messages and email. That's really how we communicate primarily.
How do you all like to give back?
Right now, it's through mentorship as much as possible. That is one thing that we feel like we can do for brokers who are just getting started and investors who are just getting started. After you've done some volume of deal flow, then there's a lot of things that you kind of see around the corner on that we feel like are really great ways that we can help people get started in their careers, in their investing. That's one thing that we recognize. We've had help from a lot of people. And so it's wherever we can, providing mentorship, hopping on coaching calls, whatever it is, we are absolutely willing and looking to do that, because that's a great way that we can kind of give back what's been given to us. And so that's a big focus for our team, but also people outside of our team. You know, we help people all the time who just give us a call and say, hey, I'm working through this deal, don't know how to structure it, I'm not sure about the zoning requirements, whatever it is. We're always willing to hop on a call and help people out, because ultimately we're continually getting help, and so we need to be fulfilling that loop as well.
Jacob, Brandon, grateful to have met you guys, and it's always great to have different contacts all over the country. So pleasure to have you on the show, and just really you elaborate on the broker and investor relationship. It's so important. It's so important that we do nurture that relationship and trust our brokers' opinions and be able to dive in there and communicate well. And I love how you talk about communication is huge, and just the speed of that, and just how some investors stand out to you, and just helping that new investor get started as well. That's so difficult, right? You know, the first few broker calls, and getting that first deal closed, but the broker is just crucial. I mean, it has been on nearly every deal for us, so cannot stress that enough. So thanks again. How can the listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for having us. Best way to get a hold of us, we are active on Instagram. That's one thing. You can find us there, jake.weaver.realtor. And then Brandon is at Your Daily Agent. So those are two great ways. You can just message us. I'm sure you got some show notes. We're happy to leave some information there. Also, weaverbyrnegroup.com. That is our website. That's our core website that you can find us. Happy to help, talk with anybody around the country. Whatever you need, we are a resource here in the Northwest for you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.